this, the third video in the series, I will be showing you how to make some of the baits that are very successful today. We will also be looking at many of the rigs and methods that have helped me to catch a lot of fish. We start on one of Linear's day ticket waters, where I will be fishing at long range using the bolt rig. I've just arrived at Rockler Lake near Milton Keynes. It's a day ticket water, about 35 acres. I've chosen a swim with an island in front of me here. It's fairly long cast, in fact very long cast. I suppose the closest part of the island is perhaps 95 yards at a guess, and further if you fish around the side of the island. It's very heavily stocked water, about 2,500 carp. It's very popular day ticket water. There's a couple of lads to my left who've had several fish up to 16 pounds earlier this morning. I'm told that the carp frequent the margins of this island and that a lot of people struggle to cast that far. So I've come equipped this morning with fast taper rods, 12.5 foot, 2 3/4 pound Trident rods, which are ideal for long distance casting. I've put shock leaders on, short shock leaders, 15 pound in breaking strain, main line is 9 pounds. And I'm going to put the first bait along the left hand edge of the island. Basically I'm going to cast as far as I can, so we'll put this one out first. I prefer to have a short drop off the rod, a couple of foot between the rod tip and the lead. 3-ounce bomb. The shock leader is fairly short. There's about 4 turns of the shock leader on the spool, so that it very quickly goes onto the main line. For accuracy, it's best to do a directly overhead cast. So I'm going to put it just alongside there. Just make sure everything's okay. Get the rod low at the back. Point the rod into the air, following the lead. I've got a tailwind behind me, and I reckon that was well over 100 yards. That's a good place for that rod. Just sink the line. It helps to have a reel with a wide spool. These new Shimano's got a lovely wide spool. If you've got a narrow spool, the line gets deep very quickly as you're casting, and there's more resistance. So that's the first one. I'm going to put some indicators on shortly. I haven't got them set up at the moment. The other rod I'm going to put into a gap in the trees. Looks a good place to cast out here. More difficult cast, in fact. It's probably about 95 yards, so I've got to cast fairly hard, but I might have to break the line, slow the line down before it gets there. So I'll just see if I can get one nicely in the gap. Yeah, there's a bit of a fallen tree in the left hand side of the gap, so I've got to be careful. Right. That was a bit short. I think I'll cast that again. I was a bit worried about overcasting. first cast of the day, so it doesn't hurt to err on the cautious side when you're doing this sort of casting. The last thing you want is it up the tree. Shot leader knot's coming through, it's just here. I like to make sure the shot leader knot is on at the very back of the spool. If you have it in the middle or forward, as the line is coming off it, it can catch the shot leader knot. Just put that one out again. Just break it a bit. Perfect. Probably about 90-95 yards. Not too difficult to cast this morning because I've got a slight tailwind. Line sunk. I'm going to put some bait out a little bit in a short while, but at the moment I'll just leave hook baits out there for a minute, and we'll put some indicators on shortly as well. It's a lovely place, lots of wildlife here. Families of grebes and herons flying around, lots of geese. It's a lovely water, certainly a nice place to come and fish. I think we've got a fish on here, just check that. Yep. Just coming straight in towards us at the moment. Give me a chance to slacken the clutch off a bit. I always have the clutch screwed up very tight when I'm long range fishing, to make sure I get a decent strike in. Problem with these very fast taper rods, of course, is they don't bend a great deal, which doesn't matter too much because by the time you get the fish close in, most of the fight is knocked out of it. Sort of rods you'd never use for close to medium range. Not a big fish, but nice start. That looks like a common. Just take it easy while it's on top. It's a typical time when the hook can come out. Shot leader knot's just coming in. There we go. It's an unusual shape for a common, really. Most commons are longer, tend to be longer and thinner. Lovely little fish. There she goes. Right, I'm just going to put some baits out, some free offerings. I've got catapult here. The normal type's completely useless for long range fishing, so we'll forget about that one. I've got a wrist rocket here. These are quite good, capable of achieving quite long distances, probably 80-90 yards. Not very good for over 100 yards. So I'll just put some baits out around the right hand rod. Even this catapult's not capable of reaching the distance I've got the left hand rod. Anyway, we'll put some baits out, one at a time. Yeah, we're just about getting there nicely, about 90 yards. Seagulls picking them up as they're hitting the water. We've got a hungry seagull. Right, I think that'll do for the moment. Half a dozen seagulls out there taking them. Another run, that was handy. On the right hand rod this time. It's taking quite a bit of line at the moment. Very lively fish, it's kiting very fast to the right at the moment. Not putting any pressure on it while it's so lively with his fast taper rod. At first I don't think the fish knew what was happening because it came towards me quite fast. That was just off the edge of the island there, quite long distance. Oh, it's really fighting now. Lovely. Still not beaten. Just let a bit of line out. Right, let's see if we can get her over the net. Yeah. Yeah, it's got her. Lovely. What a lovely fight from fish like that. Smashing. Lovely. One day may end up a very big fish. Right, let's put her back. Take it back to the water. Scattered mirror. Put her back gently. There she goes. Right, going to use a Partridge Z2 hook. Very strong hook with a wide gape. For this side hooked boilie. Just tie that onto the hook link. You don't really need a flexible hook link for a bolt rig. In fact, you want a fairly stiff one. So nylon's perfectly alright, no need to use Dacrons. What I like to do with the bolt rig these days is to actually thread the boilie down the line. I'll use a big needle. Just grab a boilie. Fairly small one. Just take that through the boilie. A slight split there. Let's use another one. Just gently go through there. They're quite hard boilies, which is what you want for the bolt rig. Okay, I'm just going to take the line through the boilie. Just so I can thread the boilie down the hook link and push it onto the eye. Touch more, try not to crack the boilie. Okay, looks a bit crude, but that's the old-fashioned bolt rig, which still works well today. Bit of tubing on the line, short piece on the hook link just to protect it from the lead. Swivel. Berkeley swivel. Tie it on there and there. Hook link wants to be quite short, about 6 inches. Lovely rig this, if the fishes just keep mouthing the boilies and playing around with them. Real winner. Not used a lot nowadays, which again is a terrific advantage if you do try it. You know it's not been hammered. A lot of people forget old methods and don't bother to use them. Find the line, the lead's on the line, so we'll just put another piece of tubing on there, about 1 inch long, to semi-fix the lead. A rig like this really casts well. The longer the hook link, the more resistance in the air and the shorter your cast. If you're really pushing for distance and if you feel that the distance is more important than the rig, then this is the rig to use. Just push that down onto the other eye of the swivel. There's 2 pieces of tubing on there now. Just bring the lead back. Just pushing the eye of the lead over the rubber. Semi-fixed, can come off, but as far as the fish is concerned it's fixed. There we have bolt rig. As I say, a lot of people don't bother to use it nowadays, but if you've got problems with a fish keep mouthing the baits, it's often a winner. On a water like this, there's plenty of fish in here, day ticket water. You've got to try different things. You can bet your life nearly everything you think of has been tried. So if you're not catching, or you're not happy with what you're catching, then I think you've got to try different things, and all of a sudden you'll hit on something that works well, and then you can catch a few fish. There's been a few fish caught today. There's a couple of chaps over the other side there. They've been getting odd fish quite steadily, both of them. One of them's using packet baits, boilies straight from the packets. His friend is using homemade baits. You've really got to use what you feel most confident with in fishing. I usually use packet baits most of the time, but I think I'll show you a homemade bait that is absolutely fantastic. It's caught literally hundreds of 20s, a lot of 30s, and abroad it's caught 40s, 50s and 60s. And it's a mix by one of the top anglers in the country. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a look at that next. There can't be many baits that have caught 16 fish over 50 pounds. And we happen to have it here. It's from the Rod Hutchinson stable. The first ingredient we need is seafood blend. So we'll just weigh out about 10 ounces. Okay. I'll just put that in the bowl. To that I'm going to add a heaped teaspoon of fish appetite stimulator. One heaped teaspoon. I'll put some eggs into this bowl. Oops. Right, to the eggs I'm going to add 5 ml of monster crab flavour. Pretty strong stuff. Add that to the eggs. Whisk that up. It's a bait that's readily available from most tackle shops. There's lots of bait companies on the market selling good quality ingredients, but this actual mix, as I say, is caught no less than 16 fish over 50 pounds from Lake Cassian, and many fish in England, of course. Right, I'm going to add the dry mix to the eggs. Already I can see why it's a successful bait, just by the smell. Really attractive seafood smell. That looks about right. Just knead it together a little bit. It's probably just a touch on the damp side, but with most mixes it pays to leave them for 2 or 3 minutes before rolling them. Just mix it thoroughly. We want the flavour and the appetite stimulators to be well distributed. Smells lovely. Right, we'll leave that for 2 or 3 minutes. Right, I think this is ready to roll now. Feels just about right. Of course, there's several ways of rolling the baits. This is the old-fashioned way. I usually roll 2 at a time, sometimes 3 at a time. You can, of course, load the paste into a pressure gun that's available in the shops today and squeeze it out as a sausage and then cut it up into bait-sized pieces, and some people find that saves time in rolling. There's many ways you can do it. You can roll the ball of paste out with a rolling pin and then cut it up into squares. You can use the various rolling machines that are on the market, but I find the old-fashioned method good enough. Just coming towards the end of this mix now. Another very successful bait from the Rod Hutchinson range is the Pro Mix 50/50. Mixed with that is a heaped teaspoonful of savoury appetite stimulator, together with 20 millilitres of the amino acid supreme over there. That's a bait that's caught many big fish for Rod and his friends. This is just starting to get a little bit drier now. I think we'll leave that last bit. What I'm going to do is transfer the boilies into this tray here. They're a little bit tacky when we started. Way to overcome the sticky problem is to put a little bit of dry mix onto the plate first of all, which I've done in here now. Just let it get really going properly. If I was doing several mixes now, I wouldn't use just an ordinary saucepan of water. I would use something like a chip fryer, where you can take the boilies out and keep reusing the water. But at the moment I'm just going to do this one batch. Right, got a little clock up here, just watch the time. them in. Water's gone off the boil, but it doesn't matter. Give them about a minute. Just give them a little stir to stop them sticking to each other. This just puts a nice hard skin on the bait, keeps the nuisance fish off. That's fine. I'll just give that about a minute. Exact time's not crucial with most baits. Even if they float up during the cooking time, they'll end up sinking usually afterwards once they've cooled down. Coming up to a minute. Right, take them over to the sink. Strain the water off. I'll just lay out a cloth to lay them on. Some of them not perfect shapes. As I say, the mix was a little bit sticky. If you know that's going to be like that, then you can just leave the mix to dry out a little bit longer, or put some powder on the plate. Just leave those to harden. Once they've cooled down, they'll start hardening quite quickly. Quite firm now already. Right. While they're cooling off, we'll have a look at the Jeff Kemp mix. This one's called Ultra Mix. Blend of milk proteins, vitamins and minerals. Instructions on the back. Add 3 eggs and the required amount of flavour to 5 ounces of this powder. So we'll just weigh out the dry mix. There's really no excuse for people not having a good bait nowadays. There's so many good baits available off the shelf in most shops. 5 ounces. We'll put some eggs in here. Next thing we want is some flavour. We'll put in some sweet peanut, about 5 ml. Very successful flavour, caught lots of fish all over the country. Very nice. We'll just add that to the egg mix. Then we'll just add the powder. Totally different type of bait to the one we mixed before. More of a milk protein based bait. Smells absolutely gorgeous. Of course, if you don't like the light colour, dyes can be added. If it's a powdered dye, obviously it's added to the dry mix. If it's a liquid dye, it's added to the eggs. And that's a completely different type of bait to the other one. Just make sure it's well mixed. Knead it well. And if we leave that for a few minutes, that will be perfect consistency to roll. Today we're at Alder Lake, part of the Linear Fisheries Complex at Milton Keynes. This lovely lake is about 7 acres in size, but it's very interesting. A lot of islands, peninsulas and bays, and areas where anglers can't get. So there's overgrown with trees and bushes. A lot of interesting features. Close by is Poplar Lake, and syndicate members can fish either lake. Poplar has a lot more carp than this one, probably 600 or 700 carp compared with perhaps 100 in here, and that's been done on purpose to give the members a choice of relatively easy fishing on Poplar, plus the choice of coming on here for larger fish. This lake's got a very bright future as a carp fishery. Last year it produced nearly 70 20s, and it's only been managed as a carp water for 3 or 4 years, so it's quite amazing how quickly this water is developing. The only disadvantage I can see of fishing this lake, if there is one, is that it's situated close to the M1, and with the wind as it is today coming from the motorway, we can hear a drone of the traffic noise. But I expect you would get used to that. Apart from that, it's a very, very nice looking lake with a lot of interesting features. There's a wildfowl centre on one of the lakes here, and already this morning we've seen a snake swimming past. We've seen grebes diving for fish, and a lot of Canada geese coming and going. So it's inundated with wildlife. We've seen quite a lot of carp already this morning. My friend Bob Baldock mentioned to me before I came here this morning, and this is the first time I've fished these lakes, that there's a lot of gravel bars, and you can see them today with the sun shining. They're up near the surface, and I was warned that it is a problem for the anglers. The line's often getting cut when a fish is hooked. So what I'm going to do today is fish with shock leaders to try and help combat that problem. Fairly heavy shock leaders. But apart from that, I can't see any other problem. At the moment I'm fishing fairly close here on a couple of bars. I've seen fish swimming over the bars since we've arrived, but they're not dropping onto the baited area at all. So what I'm going to do shortly is to cast a bit further out. There's some islands about 100 yards out there. It's a lovely area. There's been lots of carp moving. There's an area inaccessible to anglers, and obviously the carp frequent it. So I'm going to make some long distance casts up there to see if we can get one of the many fish to drop on one of the baits. But it's certainly a lovely lake. It's a pleasure to be here. Quite clear water. Good head of fish. Big fish at that. Oh, we did have a fish on, but we just lost it. I don't know what happened there, something went wrong. That's just these dreaded bars that we've been warned about. Can't feel any lead on there, so it looks like the line's been cut. Shock leader's just come in. Got quite a long shock leader on here. Yeah, the line's been cut. Unfortunately. Just above the lead by the looks of it. That's a 15-pound shock leader, so it's obviously not man enough. I've got some 30-pound line in my box, so I think we'll put that on. I was hoping that 15-pound would be strong enough. It's definitely been cut. Oh well, things look promising. It's just sad to leave a hook in a fish. Great shame. I'll just take this shock leader off of here and we'll put a stronger one on. Certainly a serious problem. I expect there's mussels on the top of the bars as well, which is not helping. Although I know that linear fisheries did pump the water down and scrape the top of the bars at one time to try and help cut down the amount of fish lost. I've just reeled this in, and it shows you just how many zebra mussels and pea mussels can congregate on the top of gravel bars. All of those mussels on one stone. Probably 40 or 50 little mussels there, and that's the problem. Your line lays across those and they're very, very sharp. It's a problem on many gravel pits of today. Major problem, necessitating the need for very heavy shock leaders. The most popular knot for attaching the shock leader is a double blood knot. It's not the most efficient knot though. If you're really going for ultimate distance and you want to use a very, very light main line, it's better to use a 4-turn water knot. But the problem with that is you've got to take the spool off the reel and it's a bit fiddly to tie. I've done 4 turns on the 11-pound and 3 turns on the £30 line. If you put the same amount of turns on each, it doesn't pull up evenly. Looks a bit of a clumsy knot, mainly because it's a very heavy line. Right. That's it. I'll just measure off the amount of shop leader we need. 3 yards, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I should think that'll be long enough for here. We'll see how we go. I had started fishing on Alder Lake that morning using the bent hook rig, which I've already described in Carp Fever 2. I always use a piece of silicone tube pushed tightly over the shank of the bent hook. Through this tube I pass a loop of elastic cotton or dacron to which is tied the bait. The loop is fitted in a way that the distance from the bait to the hook can easily be adjusted. I've already got some bent hooks ready prepared with a loop of dacron on the hook in the right position. I'll just tie one of those on. I think we'll keep the hook length down to 6 or 7 inches so it doesn't touch anything. Twice through the eye and 5 times round. That's my favourite knot. You always want to have a look at a knot and make sure it looks right, even though you're happy with the breaking strain. If it doesn't look right, it needs tying again. You might sit there with a bait out for 12 hours and then hook and lose a fish just because there's a couple of seconds saved on the bank. Tie a piece of nylon onto the boilie so I can attach it to the loop on the hook. There's various ways of doing this. This is the way I prefer. Just slip knot around the boilie. Tie that to the loop, so that's anchored about 1/4 inch from the hook. No reason to change this rig at the moment, it obviously worked. We hooked a fish, so we'll carry on with this at the moment. There we are, just double check everything. Knots once more, you can't check them too many times. Seems okay. Right, we've got some £30 line on there now. Looks pretty awful, but We'll see how that performs against the bars and the muscles. Just got to make sure that this shock leader knot is at the back of the spool. It's very important that, especially when it's a big and ugly knot like that one is. The reason being, as the line's pouring off the spool during the cast, you don't want the coils to catch on the knot if it's halfway up the spool. If it's right at the back there, the rest of the shock leader can come off without interfering with the knot. Just cast out alongside the islands. That's exactly where I wanted it. So we've got a £30 shock leader on now. Hopefully that will be sufficient. Just sink the line. I'm not using any indicators at the moment, just straight off the bait runner, but I should probably set up some indicators later on. It's no problem while I can watch the line, because if I get a fish come towards me, I'll see the line drop from the rod tip. But if you're not concentrating on the line, it's best to have some indicators there that will drop back. Okay, just keep our fingers crossed that we get another chance. The weather had got progressively hotter as the day wore on, and it was not the sort of conditions that you would expect to take a fish on a bottom bait. Well, nothing much seems to be happening at the moment. I think it might be a good time to set up another different rig or two that we can try a little bit later. It's very quiet at the moment. I think I'll set up an ordinary, fairly ordinary Dacron type hook link. Nowadays I use either the Christen multi-strand or the silkworm. I think we'll set up, got a silkworm hook link here. It's a nice supple material, very versatile, very strong and reliable, quite reliable. The only problem with these sort of materials is they are prone to tangling during the cast and on the retrieve. So what I'll do is I'll set up an anti-tangle rig with this. I need some tubing. I must admit I'm not a great lover of tubing, but sometimes it's necessary. The main thing here is to use a bit of tubing up the line that's longer than the hook link. So I'll just cut a piece an inch or two longer than the hook link. Okay, we'll just cut that there. Best thing is to keep the rig as simple as possible. what I want to do is put a lead straight onto this rubber, like so. That's nice and simple, not much to get tangled. Next thing is to put the line through the tubing, normally the main line through the tubing. Little tip here, sometimes it's a problem getting the line through such a length of tubing. There's a little thing I picked up from Jim Gibbonson, is to actually blow a little bit of spit through the tube. Doesn't sound very nice, but it really does help the line go through. Just push that through. Alright, through already. Next thing is to put the lead on. Like so. No need for a bead or anything like that, just again keep it very simple. Attach the line. I'm going to attach the line straight to the hook link swivel. Like so. Just pull the line back. Push it over the swivel, the tubing over the swivel. And that's fairly simple anti-tangle setup, with the tube longer than the hook link. As it flies through the air, it's less likely to tangle round the tube, and that's spinning around there in the air, than if you use the nylon straight off. So it's just a straightforward anti-tangle setup. Nice and simple. Nothing really for the line to get caught on. There's nothing worse than casting out and sitting there for 3 or 4 hours and the rig's in a terrible tangle. The fish will still take the bait with the rig in a tangle, but the rig won't work right, and chances are the fish will eject the bait. Now this type of anti-tangle rig is rapidly becoming obsolete, because the Christen people have just brought out a fluid which is non-toxic, which you can rub onto the line before you cast it out, and that makes it stiff. You just put a bit between your fingers and just run it up the hook link like so. And so it's non-toxic, so nothing to worry about. Now that makes that hook link go stiff, but the beauty of it is once it's in water it deteriorates and becomes supple again. So it's great for casting. It's getting stiffer now, and that really helps stop tangles. So these sort of setups becoming less necessary now. Often I put the hair attach the head to the bottom of the hook, but sometimes I want it coming off the shank. I still use the old-fashioned method of actually tying it on with nylon. Sometimes I use Dacron and have it as an extension of the hook link, but I still prefer this way. That's attached to the bottom of the hook. But what I want to do is to actually have the hair coming off of the shank. So I normally do this by using a very small piece of silicone tube pushed up over the point of the hook and up the shank. I just move the hair around to the shank where I want it. That's about where I want it coming from, so I'll just put this tiny bit of tube over the point. And up the shank. That's now coming off the shank. I can adjust that with the tube. I can have it coming off by the eye or further down. So at the moment that's coming off about halfway along the straight bit of the shank. Nice and simple and effective, and that will stay there, withstand any amount of casting. So there we are. Well, we still haven't had any joy yet. Had the odd short pull, but I think the fish are touching the baits, mouthing the baits, but what we've tried so far doesn't appear to be working. It's difficult on a day like this. It's so hot and they're not really interested in feeding. We've tried the bent hook rig on a nylon hook link. We've tried a longer type hook link in braided. We've tried various different rigs. We still haven't caught anything yet. What I've noticed is just over the second bar, it's about 35 yards out in front of me, there's 3 or 4 fish keep on visiting the same spot on the back edge of the bar. So I think what I'd like to do is try a different setup again, just carefully positioned on the back edge of the bar. I can overcast the bar and just pull back onto it. And what I think I'll do is I'll put a stringer on as well, so I've got some baits very close to the hook bait. I think I'll put a side hooked bait on, so I'll just cut that hook off of there. Cassian hook. What I'll do is I'll put a Partridge Z2 on, which is a nice hook for side hooking a bait. Lovely strong hook, wide gape. Nice hook for side hooking a boilie. I'll just sharpen that up a touch. Usually I sharpen hooks from 2 angles, from the front edge, and you don't have to necessarily feel it to see it's sharp, to know it's sharp. And then I do it usually from the side. That's okay, I'll just put that on there. Twice through the eye. The reason I want to try a side hook bait is because I'm sure they're actually mouthing the bait, getting hold of the bait in their lips, feeling the lead and the resistance and dropping it. So I'm hoping to catch one out. I don't suppose side hook baits are used very much on this water. Right. Put a boilie on there. That's a side hooked boilie. Push it up to the eye. Nice sharp hook. And put a string on, I think. Some PVA string. Needle with a large hole. This is an ideal situation for fishing a stringer. I want to position 3 or 4 baits very near the hook bait at the back of the bar, and if I try to catapult them or use a throwing stick, they're going to be spread out, and I think this situation calls for very accurate baiting. So we'll put 4 or 5 baits on the stringer, just thread those on. I think 4 will do nicely. That will dissolve probably in a minute or so after being in the water. No need to tie a knot in that because they're quite tight fitting on there. Sometimes you have to tie the bottom boilie. We'll attach that to the hook. You can attach it to the lead if you wish. Like so. Right, we'll carefully position this at the back of the bar. I want to go just past that point. I'll just pull that back onto the bar. Yes, the rod tip's banging there, so that's gravel. Lovely. That's exactly where I want it. And now we'll see what happens. Some days you just keep trying and trying different things, and if conditions are wrong, it doesn't matter what you do, you won't catch. Sometimes it's impossible. That's the beauty of carp fishing, it's unpredictable. Put a bit of slack off there because I've got a fixed lead on there and I don't want the line coming tight off the bar, which might frighten the fish. Right. You join me later, just seconds after I've hooked a fish on the stringer rig shown previously. Try and keep the line up. It's just on the back of that bar. if I can get it to come over without too much pressure. I think it's coming over. Yes, I think it's over. Yeah, I can see the fish on top of the bar now. Just gently. There's a shot leader knot just there. Just about to go onto the spool. It should be okay now. I don't think it's a very big fish. Just on top out there now. Certainly a double. Just tighten up the clutch a bit now. I like to have the clutch quite loose if I'm fishing on top of the bar like I was then, because I don't like to be tempted. You rush to the rod and strike, and it's at that point you don't want to give the fish a lot of stick. So I usually have the clutch quite loose when I'm fishing on the bar. Oh, it's a lovely fish, nearly fully scaled. What a beautiful fish. It's just taking a bit of line now. Just take it easy. There she is. I'm going to get it in the net as soon as possible because it doesn't look very well hooked. That's it, we got her. Beautiful. What a pretty fish. Smashing. Let's get hold of that cord. Lovely fish. Looks an upper double. Whew. Lovely fish. Look at that, just lightly hooked in the bottom lip. See what she weighs. It's about 18. Lovely fish. Yep. Beautiful. It's not often you catch fish with such lovely scale patterns as this these days. Some people call them old English type scale patterns. A lot of carp in England used to be like this, but more recent strains tend to be less scaled. Beautiful. What a cracker. Look at that. You just look at that. Beautiful. Whoa. Truly beautiful fish. Yeah, the bank's a bit steep where I was fishing. It's a much better place to return the fish here. What a lovely fish. hold him for a second in case he's a bit dazed. It's not always the size of the fish that's important. What a cracking fish that is. Lovely fish.
It was to be the only other fish hooked that day.
Absolutely
but
lovely
proved that
fish.
carp can be taken if the correct rigs and methods
She should
are
go back
adopted,
okay now.
even when conditions seem unfavourable.
Great. They look so much smaller in the water, don't they?
You join me here again on my second day at Alder Lake, where, as before, we again experienced extremely hot conditions and the carp were very reluctant to feed. I was determined to catch another fish from over the notorious gravel bars, so when the wind picked up during the late afternoon, I decided on a move which would hopefully put me amongst some feeding fish. I was soon proved right when a fish picked up my slow-sinking boilie, fished on a standard hair rig. I had previously microwaved some boilies, some of which were floaters and some slow sinkers, and for this particular setup, a slow sinker is usually best. Fishing over gravel bars can present problems when playing fish, and this one was no exception. I always find that the best way to handle the fish in this situation is to hold the rod as high as possible, thereby keeping the line high up in the water, so that there is less chance of it touching the tops of the bars,
Still
where
grating
there might be
quite
sharp
badly.
stones or mussels. If I feel the line grating, or I know the fish has gone deep behind the bar, I would put very little pressure on the line, as this greatly reduces the chances of it being cut right through. Once I've got the fish on my side of the bar, I will then exert more pressure on the line, not as much as normal if I think the line might be damaged. In a situation like this, great patience is required.
Pretty. Fighting very well, very fit fish. Let's hope it's a big one. I haven't really seen it yet. No, it's not as big as I thought it might be. Looks an upper double. Golly, they certainly do fight, these fish. Just want to keep it away from that line. That other line. It's better. Just don't understand it. Doesn't look a big fish, but it's fighting very well. Amazing. Just under that rod again. Right, let's see if we can get her this time. Yeah. What a fit fish. Amazing. Still fighting now in the landing net.
After quite a long hard fight from this very fit fish, I was surprised to find that it weighed just under 14 pounds.
Lovely, what a lovely fish. Almost a leather. I don't think the hook would have stayed in much longer. Just lightly hooked. I think we'll weigh him up. I'm going to get soaked now. Lovely, back it goes. Shooting along the margins.
We are back on Alder Lake, a week later, with the objective of catching a good fish for the camera. I didn't rate our chances. As usual, it was again a blazing hot day and the carp were reluctant to take baits on top or on the bottom. I had seen a few fish visiting an overhanging bush and thought that this would be a good opportunity to try float fishing, especially as they might be feeding cautiously. This is a method neglected by most modern carp anglers, but one that can be very rewarding. I know of waters where 10 carp can be caught on a float, compared with only 1 on some of today's ledger rigs. The trouble with fishing a float is that you cannot watch it for hours on end, but for short sessions the method can be deadly effective. I used a conventional float, fished a little over depth with a hair-rigged boilie as bait.
The float's gone. Oh! That nearly caught me by surprise then. All of a sudden the float was gone. Something on here. Doesn't feel very big. Oh, I don't know. Obviously one of those fish that was moving in front of the bush. I was just going to give up then. The float had been out there over an hour. Just taking a little bit of line. Line flicking off the fins. I just got a glimpse of it then. Looks quite a good fish. Here she comes. Ooh. She comes. Get her. No. I thought we might get her then, but she didn't like the look of the net. There she comes again. Let's see if we can get it this time. Yeah, got it. Oh, it is a good fish. Make sure it's in the net properly. Lovely. Don't often catch them on float gear, I must admit. He's a good fish. Oh yes, definitely. Cool. Yes, just about over 20. Just over 21 pounds. Just over 21. Lovely fish. Quite wide from on top, quite a chunky fish. If we can get it through the reeds. There back she goes. Ooh, she's gone away fast. There she goes.